believe we are live on Facebook right now. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are live with us on Facebook with ISR Training, good morning. Tuesday the 9th of June, it is 8 a.m. on the dot. It is 4 p.m. I believe on the other side of the world with Shari. And today I welcome somebody who already in the last 10 minutes has made me laugh pretty hysterically. So I think we're going to have some fun this morning. I've got somebody who is world known as a sales guru. She helps build sales teams and help them bridge the gap with something that's close to our heart. With not just making sales and hitting your KPIs, but actually selling with authenticity and with a heartfelt approach. She is the founder of the Shari Levitin Group. She's helped create over $1 billion in increased revenues for companies in over 40 countries, which is pretty impressive in itself. She's got a book, which I hope she's going to promote at some stage throughout the course of this morning. She's the best-selling author of this book, which is called Heart and Sell, which is the 10 universal truths every salesperson needs to know. I wish I'd have found this book many, many years ago. She contributes to Forbes, CEO magazine, Quotable, Inc. magazine, and Huffington Post, to name a few. And then just to rattle off a few milestones, because I know when I'm being interviewed for podcasts and brought on stage, this is the bit that makes me feel uncomfortable, but let's see how you go. She was named top 38 most dynamic women in sales. There is not enough of you. Top 10 voices in sales for LinkedIn 2018. Top 20 global sales experts appearing in a documentary film, The Story of Sales, through Salesforce. 35 most influential women in sales. Top 35 authors for Heart and Sell. Number one thought leader in 2019 for Girls Club, and top 50 keynote speakers around the world. You now live in Utah, where we've got some snow.
It's June and it's snowing. Yes, it's you never know what the weather's going to do here in Park City. So yeah, we're in the mountains in Park City, Utah. We have the Sundance Film Festival here, and we're best known for our great skiing. Although this year, of course, along with everything else, all of our ski resorts shut down early. So
everything is closed, but you are open today. You are here.
Thank you. Open.
Thanks for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I'm excited. I've been following your content for a while. And this is what I love about the internet right now, is that you've got an ability to impact lives and you don't even know it. And you were impacting me for the last 6 months and you don't even know it. How does that make you feel? Is that why you is that what you do?
I mean, the truth is it's a little embarrassing to hear, but it's why I do what I do. We were talking about this earlier. To me, sales and helping people in sales, it all started because I had a mentor, but I believe truly that we're not just helping people to sell more, we're helping them to be more. And when we can be more, we can sell more. So selling is a way of life, because to me, it's about being a better communicator, being a better goal setter, being able to admit when you're wrong, being more self-aware. All of these things that make you a better seller make you a better person. So we have to change who we are before we can change our sales numbers. And so my greatest joy is when somebody says, wow, I have a better relationship with my kids, or I've quit a bad habit. Oh, by the way, I made a ton more money. That's what makes me happy.
Yeah, nice. And I want to start with the heartfelt, heart-centered selling, really, because it is something that aligns with us. Obviously, SWISH is our acronym, selling with integrity, selling honestly. Where did the heart-centered selling focus come from you? Is that just an innate thing, or have you been on a journey of seeing the wrong side of sales that kind of pushed you in this direction?
Well, I've definitely seen the wrong side of sales. Having been in sales for over 25 years, I've seen it all. I've seen people do it the wrong way. I've seen them do it the right way. And, I always feel, Ryan, like when somebody does it the wrong way, it's a cop-out. It's like having a fight at a bar instead of just actually listening and working it out. It's easier. It's easier to do it the wrong way. It takes more effort to do it the right way. Why? Well, because we have to listen instead of talk, which doesn't come naturally to most people. We have to be empathetic. We have to put our own views aside, our own biases. My gosh, we have a country for sure here in the United States that's divided. We've got a world that's divided, and our ability to listen with heart and with empathy is key, not only to selling more, but like I said, to being more and to having better communities. So it's in my core, it's at my heart of who I am. And the truth is, people say, well, why do you do it? Because I haven't figured it all out. I'm still working on myself all of the time. I'm a parent, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a child to two wonderful parents. And, you know, sure, I'll catch myself not being empathetic with my son. He always calls me on it because he's read my books, but you know, it's a process, not an event. So selling from the heart isn't something, oh, I got that. Yep. Pass that course. It's a journey, right? It's a life journey to do better and better and impact people more and more.
I love that. And that's something that we allude to, probably not as eloquently as you just put it there. We say that sales it isn't just you call it a one night stand, and we'll get into that in a second. It's not just a one night stand. It's a lifestyle. It's something that we need to continually work on. But what got you there right in the start? What got you into sales? Is it in the family? Is it, what's the go there?
I was ashamed to my father. Where I grew up, I was supposed to either be a doctor, a lawyer, or marry one. So I didn't do any of those things. In fact, I didn't even finish college. I was at the University of Colorado. I joke that I had a double major, partying and skiing. I did both very, very well. And accidentally took the summer off. Thought I had a very glitzy, glamorous job in the mountains, being sort of a tour guide to wealthy people. I was 22 years old. Turns out they hired me to be one of those hustlers in front of the market to invite people to timeshare tours. So that was my very first job when I was 22 years old. And then I actually got into sales with Marriott and became the top salesperson in all of Marriott. And then from there, a VP of sales, and then started my company, and then got into many different verticals, and a lot of things happened along the way.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And was there a pivotal moment for you then when you, like me, I said it just before we went live there, I was an engineer, and I had a moment where I realized that sales was a process. There is a system, there's an order that we do things, and we can endear ourselves to people in different ways. Did you have that pivotal moment at all?
Gosh, I did. You know, like I said, what happened was I had been in all these companies that were pretty fly by night, and I was almost going to get out of sales, go back to school. And then I met a man who would become my mentor. And I was working with Marriott, and I'll never forget it because it was one evening, and I was a mediocre salesperson at best. I was not born a great salesperson. And I remember I was writing up a contract late in the evening, and my boss at the time says, "Can I see you in my office when you're done?" Now I'm thinking I'm in trouble. I did something wrong in the contract. I was a little high maintenance. He brings me down to his office. He closes the door, sits me down, looks me in the eye. He says, "You know, I've been watching you for the last several months, and I have to tell you, you have a rare talent. And if you keep this up, and if you learn more and study more, I think you have the ability to be number one in our company." Well, you got to understand something. Nobody had ever believed in me like that before. And I had never been number one in anything. So the next morning I get up early, and I'm thinking, oh, I got all this talent. I got to get up early and study and train. And back in those days, I'm listening to cassette tapes and videos, and I'm training, and I'm asking for his advice. And after every customer, I'd say, what could I have done better? And at the end of that year, sure enough, I became the top salesperson at that particular site. So then I announced I was going to be the top salesperson in all of Marriott. I think there was 25 sites at the time, and everybody said, "No, she's not going to be able to do it. That Bill Ford beats everybody. He's going to kick her butt." And he said, "You watch her. She has a rare talent." So sure enough, by the end of that year, I became the top salesperson in all of Marriott, broke every record they had ever had. And I remember my mentor, he had this huge bouquet of flowers, and on it was a big sign, and it says, "You have a rare talent." And in fact, I did so well that I got a promotion to make less money and work longer hours. They made me a manager and shipped me out to Park City, Utah, which is why I live here today. And I was a horrible manager. And I remember going down to his office one November morning to quit. And I said, "I'm not cut out for this. I'm going to go back to sales." And he looks at me and he says, "What took you so long?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "How come when you were in sales, you asked for help every single day?" He says, "Just because you're a manager, do you think you're supposed to know it all?"
Yeah, wow.
And I was sort of sobbing, and he says, do you want me to teach you the trick to be the world's greatest manager? Or are you going to quit? I said, no, I want to learn. I want to learn. He says, all right, take out a pen. And I used to always, and I still do, carry a little moleskin book. And he says, I'm going to teach you the secret, yes, to being the world's greatest leader manager. I said, yes, what? He says, when you have a salesperson, even if they're not that good, but they're kind of hungry and they look like they want to learn, what you should do is bring them into your office, lock the door, sit them down, and tell them that they have a rare talent.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I was so mad at first, but I tell you that story, that changed my life.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I had a mentor who believed in me more than I believed in myself. But there was something more, Ryan. He had this rare ability, and I have to remind myself every day, he had this rare ability to find the talent or the good in every human. You know, we can look for what's wrong in a customer, in an employee, in a situation, in a crisis, in a pandemic. We can all find fault. That's easy. But it's the superstar that can find the good and the talent and what's right. And I think of him every single day. And I say, what's right about that person? What's right about that situation?
Yeah, wow.
So that was everything.
Amazing. Well, that was I was going to ask you about your biggest influences, but that sounds like that was the most monumental sort of crossroads in your life, right? That when he said that rare talent phrase to you, which is going to stick with me as well, which might lead me on to something else I wanted to talk to you about today, because for me, there's not enough females in sales, and I've been in the industry now for almost a decade. Some of the best salespeople I've worked with, your introvert personality types that are females. So why do you think there aren't as many females in the industry? And I guess that might lead us on to the fact that, do you believe anybody can be trained in this skill anyway? Do you think this is something that everybody can kind of pick up?
Well, there's people that study that and may have facts and figures. Lori Richardson, who runs Women Sales Pros, if you're not following her, any women that are listening, she's amazing. Lauren Bailey, also amazing. I'm going to say there's really 3 reasons that more women aren't in sales. You know, first of all, don't forget, it wasn't long ago that women weren't doing corporate jobs. I mean, even when I was in my early 20s, again, I joked I was supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, or marry one. The real goal was for me to marry one, not for me to be one. And so it just wasn't as expected that women would go into these professions. And I think as a result, what happens is you had, you know, whole cultures that where their systems, their processes, and their culture was more male dominant. So whatever that means. I mean, I can tell you back in my Marriott days when I became the top producer, they all wanted to go to a strip club. So my boss said, I think I'll take her out for a steak dinner. I don't think that's what Shari wants to do. But so you've got a cultural, you know, and if women walk into a company and there's 30 men in the C-suite, they're not going to feel comfortable there. So, you know, it's really a matter of consciously choosing female candidates and consciously changing that culture, because there are many statistics that show that women do have a bit more empathy. And in many cases, women can outsell men. And I don't believe one's better than the other. I do believe we're different. And I believe diversity in anything is what gives you power to create and to think outside yourself, because we don't just want people just like us ever. But so I think that's one reason. I think that the second reason is that, look, let's face it, generally women are the primary caregivers. So we're having children, we're doing other things. We've got other roles and responsibilities. That's changing, but it is harder. And now more and more companies are having, you know, leave for women that, you know, are having, there's a name for it. It's just escaped me. The leave that you get when you, pardon?
Parental leave?
Yes, thank you, parental leave. So I think that's a reason. And I think the third reason that women aren't in sales, sales leadership as much is because there's some statistics that are interesting that men will take a job even if they don't feel they qualify for it. where women will back off and say, well, I'm not qualified for that. And so my message to women is just go for it. Find a mentor like I did, go into action and learn on the job, because there are so many things that you can learn if you just jump in. And we have so much information today. And it is the greatest profession in the world. I will tell you that for salespeople, the divorce rate is lower, the happiness quotient is higher, and the average income is higher than in most professions at an entry level. It certainly was for me. So
you've just sold all the single salespeople out there. They've just gone, well, hey, I can bring a lot more money into this household. It's the highest paying.
yeah.
You alluded to something right in the middle there, Shari. That you mentioned the word empathy, and it was it was a video that you made that really resonated with me. It was a quick 90-second segment where you said, our job is to lead with empathy, and then we work with reliability, consistency, credibility, so on and so forth. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, I would say, people always ask me, what's the biggest mistake salespeople make? Two things we all learned in Sales 101. There's two things you need in order to make a sale. You need competency, you need your product knowledge, and you need your empathy, or you need to know your product, and you need to know your consumer. And whenever I do a big live event, I'll always say, if you could choose between competency and empathy, you only get both, what would you choose? And, it's about a half-half. Some people say you need to know the product. Others will say you need to know the customer. And then I reveal that the truth is it's a trick question. They are both equally important, competency and empathy. In fact, Harvard Business Review did an article on this called First Connect, Then Lead. Competency and empathy make up 90% of influence. So knowing your product, knowing your customer. However, the order matters. And most sellers get it wrong. You want to know the biggest mistake? We lead with competency. And proof of that is you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, and the minute you connect, they try to sell you their wares. They tell you why they're a great fit. They've built no relationship. They've done no homework. They know nothing about you, and they're selling. Or, we've all had it happen where we get on a sales call with a rep. They're going to do a demo. They don't know anything about my company. They don't know anything about me. And it's this long, boring demo. The truth is, before people decide what they think of your message, they decide what they think of you. Trust is built on 5 components. If we were to unpack trust, and trust, of course, is the critical element to any sale. Trust is built of empathy, competency, reliability, integrity, and vulnerability. But it's empathy that gets you in the door. It's reliability, competency, integrity, and vulnerability that keep you there. But you have to lead with empathy. You have to make it about the customer. So if you're prospecting, you have to learn everything you can on LinkedIn or wherever you're going to go about your customer. You have to understand their company, trigger events. I call it show me you know me. You've got to know your customer and make sure your messaging and your conversations are about them. I'm doing the opposite of what somebody should do because we're doing a live broadcast. But if I were in a sales presentation with you, you should be talking more than me. That's leading with empathy. So I would say that is the biggest default for sellers. And I think we do it out of insecurity, quite frankly, or we're just anxious. We don't have that emotional intelligence skill of self-restraint. And we're just so excited to show our products and services that we don't stop, listen, learn about our customer, and ask the right questions to find out what really matters to them.
Yeah, I love that. I think there was lots of nuggets of gold in there, guys. I think that there's a fine line between being passionate about what we offer, right? And especially if you're the solopreneur, that's your own business, you've created this product or service, you love it, and actually coming across as though you're just chasing a commission. So how is there a way we rein that in? How do we go, well, I'm very aware that I'm doing all of the talking here?
Oh boy. Listening skills, a lot of people don't think of skills like listening or empathy or curiosity in the same way that we might think of learning to play an instrument or a sport. So if you're going to learn to play soccer or rugby, it's going to take discipline and it's going to take practice. You don't just, go to the finals, right? It doesn't work that way. It takes a lot of practice and discipline. The truth is, it's the same with listening. It's a skill, one that needs to be practiced. And so it's not like you read a book on listening and you're good at listening. And I will also say, we can't have two different versions of ourselves. You do it at home, do it at the dinner table, try it tonight, listen better. And the reason it's hard is to actually prove, and brain research has proven, it's more difficult. It takes more energy to listen than it does to talk. So you are more exhausted right now than I am. Guaranteed. Because you have to listen to me. And it's the same for a seller. It takes a lot of energy to listen. And I also think a lot of sellers don't know what to listen for. And so in our programs, we show them, here's the 4 or 5 things you need to listen for. Here's the types of questions that you need to ask. Sometimes sellers just don't have the training in order to get to the heart, I call it, because we can't just sell on logic. We have to sell on emotion because people make decisions based on emotion.
Yeah, amazing. Getting under the surface, through the skin, onto the bones, right?
In the heart.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions, Shari, that have just come in on Facebook. So if you don't mind me digressing to them, because they're watching live. Firstly, people are saying it's very inspiring. Thank you for your time. What happens if there is someone that they believe in, I think they mean in their team, but they are not focused, not hungry, and seems not interested, but telling them they're 100% committed? I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you give your...
You might have hired the wrong person. I mean, let's face it. You not only need the skills to sell, you need the will to sell. And if someone isn't motivated, and I'll tell you, I've made this mistake 1,000 times. So whoever asked that, where as a leader, you believe in them more than they believe in themselves. What I would tell you tactically you want to do is you've also got to have those difficult conversations. So being a leader is a combination of empathy and courage. And you have to have the courage to have those difficult conversations and to really uncover what it is they want, what they want out of their life, more than just a commission check, what drives them. And then I would give them an assignment. I would say, I want you to read this book, and then don't just tell them to read the book. Say, I want you to outline 3 things you learned in each chapter, or I want you to go to the SWISH site and watch these or listen to these 5 podcasts, and give them something to do, give them a by when. And if they don't do that, if they're not coachable, if they're not willing to put in the work, forget about them. If they're willing to put in the work, I'd give them a shot. I'd give them a chance. But I find most people, if we believe in them, but they're not willing to do the work, probably the wrong person on your team.
Yeah, I love it. I think we've all stayed in relationships too long when we knew it wasn't working in businesses. Exactly. Right. So I've got another one. Sorry, the real quick one. What was the name of the women's group again?
Women Sales Pros is an international organization led by Lori Richardson. I will say, to join, you have to be in business for yourself. Most of us are authors and sales trainers, and it's an incredible group of women. Bernadette McClelland is there in Australia. She's a member, and she's fantastic. Maybe you'll interview her one day, but it's this amazing group of powerful women who all support each other. And I can't recommend enough having a support group, a mastermind group, people that you can bounce ideas off of, because again, we get stuck in our own ruts. And I find the best way to sort through a problem is either to go outside in nature or to, be curious and be vulnerable and talk to other people that might have some ideas.
Yeah.
And that group.
You've used the word vulnerable a couple of times now. And it's something that I got chastised for being. I think when I first got into sales, I won't tell you the training course that I did. I referenced him earlier on before we went live. And I was...
Say it. Come on, Ryan, go for it.
Well, the wolf himself. So I did straight line persuasion, as you know. And I was told, you be strong. You're the expert. You're professional. There's no vulnerability here. You've got to be the authority figure. And then I realized that wasn't being authentically me, because I struggled in sales. I was bottom of 21 people in a sales room, and I hated it. And then I started to tell people about my journey, and I started to tell people about,
Beautiful.
And there was a real direct correlation with me. Now I know it was being vulnerable, right? Me being vulnerable and actually seeing results soar. Can you teach that? How do you encourage people? Does it have to just be shown and witnessed for them to actually want to actually do it themselves?
Being vulnerable takes courage, because we're taking off, right now, I would draw an analogy. We're all being told to wear masks. because of COVID-19. But there's a time you want to take off your mask, and that's when you're with a customer. You can't be something you're not. If you're applying for a job, don't tell people that you have strengths that you don't. Now, I'm not contradicting myself. Earlier, I said, if you don't have all the skills, go ahead and go for it. Let somebody know, I don't know that, but I'll find out, I'll learn, I'm curious. I will do anything to, master that skill. That shows character, which is very different than skills. What you're describing, this vulnerability, it's honest, it's truth. And if you look at people's posts on LinkedIn, or what attracts you to an article or a person, it's a person that's human, that says, let me tell you about the time that I failed. Let me tell you how I overcame depression. I openly talk about the time I started a technology company and I lost lots and lots of money and was embarrassed because I learned so much through that failure. And I think that, any great entrepreneur, any great salesperson has had plenty of failure. They just kept going. And they've had more success than failures.
Yeah, I love it. My speaking coach, Harry, that we spoke about, he told me that success was just giving it a go in the first place. And then when you do that, you remove any opportunity to fail. And I'm hearing that again there. Got another question from a guy called Sam, who he must be in the timeshare industry, and you've triggered something. He said, in the wake of COVID-19, how do you see the timeshare industry changing, if at all?
Well, one thing I know, and I started in that industry and still have many friends and some clients as well. It depends where you are, it depends where you're selling, and it depends how COVID has affected you. I know a lot of resorts in Mexico and in the Caribbean are completely shut down. I know some of the big brands here in the United States are opening back up because people are frightened to travel. I will say a couple of things. Number one, I think from a company perspective, everybody out there needs to have an alternative means of distribution, and that alternative means has to be virtual selling. So we need to equip ourselves with virtual selling skills. Is it more effective live? Always. We can smell each other. We release a chemical called oxytocin, the trust hormone. It's always better to sell live. But if you can't, and what happens in the next crisis? I think this is a wake-up call to people who lost all their means of distribution. Now, we're in plenty of industries where, whether it's real estate, senior living, cars, banking, where they already had alternative distribution in place. They already had virtual sales teams. So I think from a corporate level, we're going to have to, you're going to have to look at really getting virtual down. I think from a sales perspective, it's like anything else. You've always got to take a customer's biggest challenge and make it a reason to buy. Now that sounds different than selling with heart, but I can tell you, as far as vacations go, right now people are scared to get on planes. They're scared to go to big resorts, but I will tell you, this too shall pass. So what's going to happen is that in the future, people are going to want to even more get out and do things. Now, maybe in smaller accommodations and maybe in different ways for a little while, but I would use that to your advantage because I can tell you, just being cooped up, people have a pent-up demand to want to go out and travel.
Yeah, nice. Again, you said we need to try an alternate means of distribution. So you've taken a lot of your training digital as well. Any sort of for you in that after many years of really passionately being a physical trainer and speaker? Any challenges?
Well, it's just, again, it's evolution. I like change. I like innovation. And a lot of our clients, we're booking virtual keynotes. Now, I will say, you don't just take your hour keynote or your 2-day training seminar and slop it up online. It takes a lot of work. Fortunately for us, we've had a virtual university for over 10 years, and we've now just added hours and hours, 10, 15 hours worth of content on today's objections, how to sell virtually, how to build value in a poor economy, customer experience, all of these things. So we've had that, but we're adding new content constantly. And the way we deliver it is different. Because now, if we're on a Zoom call, for instance, if all of us were in a seminar, I would give you exercises and break you off into Zoom rooms. So you get the same experience that you do when we're live, because the truth is, training isn't about listening, it's about doing. And we learn from doing. So we learn more by doing exercises and having interactives and role plays and assignments. And so we try to make our virtual learnings just as much of a rock show as our live learnings, which is people learn when they have fun. So you have to create a really fun environment.
I love it. And that you said before we came live as well that there's a kid's book, and you said, and we could use it right now as the analogy. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is hit, but fortunately, we've got a digital world, so we can actually impact more people. The reality is, this interview might not have ever happened, because I would have put it into the too hard basket. You're probably never going to fly over, do a podcast. I hadn't really, until the last 8 weeks, been doing these virtual ones. So now I get to spread your message, which I think is fantastic, to this side of the world, which I know is already prevalent anyway, but even more so. So can you just quickly, for the people that haven't heard of that book, can you tell me again the story you told me? Do you have it with you?
I do. I do.
Tell me more about it.
I better have it. It's the 10 universal truths every salesperson and entrepreneur needs to know. And they work not only in sales, but in your life to help you to be a better parent, a better leader. That's because they're universal truths. And 5 of the truths are based on what you need to do. They're tactical: how to ask good questions, how to create urgency, how to close the sale with integrity. But the other 5 aren't what you need to do. They're who you need to be. So having a growth mindset, being kind, positivity. I tell a story in there about one of the top salesperson people in the United States. They couldn't figure out why he was the top. And NPR actually did a piece on this. And they found he did 3 times as much sales as any of the other car salesmen in the world, in the country, I'm sorry, Town and Country Auto Dealership. And as they did a little bit more research, they found out he didn't see the glass as half empty or half full. He saw it as overflowing. It's that positivity, constructive delusion. So we have a whole chapter about how looking for wrongs never makes you right, sort of like that rare talent story I told you. So people love it. It's in 4 languages, the 10 universal truths, a lot of stories, and a lot of actual to-dos. Here's what you need to do tactically.
Yeah, and that was really important from my perspective. I know I can watch one of your 60-second videos, 90-second videos. It is inspiring by default. And what I mean by that is I don't feel that you put content out there to motivate. I feel that it's practical training, the to-do, the hows, and then as a default of being able to do your job better, you'll get intrinsic motivation. Is that a conscious effort from you? You don't want to be a motivational speaker or keynote?
I think motivational speakers are great, and I think they're entertainers, right? It's like going to a great Broadway show. Who doesn't love that? Or going to a great magic show. But I am committed to not just entertaining, but to helping you increase your ROI, to increase your win rate, to expediting your sales cycle, to we do training programs for companies, and we've had 30% increased retention. I want to bring bottom line value to my customers. And that happens through being motivational. But you can't, to me, if you're just motivational, it's not enough.
Yeah. That soon wavers after 24, 48 hours, right? Okay, last couple of practicals before I wrap this up were corporate clients. I know you work with some big, huge organizations around the world. What's your tips for people that are looking to approach enterprise type companies or corporate, what would be classed as a corporate company?
I would say the biggest thing selling B2B as opposed to B2C is realize there's a lot of interesting new research. In fact, I'm on the Gartner panel as a thought leader, and they have some very interesting research. Number one, big difference. There is now an average of 11 decision makers in order to make a complex sale, a B2B sale. Wow. So you have to be very mindful that you may have somebody that loves you, loves your product, and then it goes to committee. And that's where it dies. It's death by committee. So it's a little more complex, but you can get much bigger commissions. Yeah. You need to have a strategy to get all of the decision makers either in the room or really prepare your champion and to understand the mindsets and the motivations of all the different decision makers. So that's one thing. And we teach a lot of that and how to use video in your sales process in order to do that. So that's one thing. I would say the second thing, to get into a big enterprise client, you've got to do your research. You've got to do your homework. You can't just call and do a 30-minute discovery, right? They're not going to give you the time. They didn't come to you. So really do your homework, understand what that company is going through. If you can find a company with what we call a trigger event, they've got a new CMO, they've had an acquisition, they've downsized, something that is change, it's a really good time to go into that company. Yeah. There's a lot of change right now with COVID. I will tell you, we find it one of the best times to prospect into big companies, into enterprise, because you can get a hold of the CEO, you can get a hold of the decision maker. But again, number two, you've got to do your homework. And I would say number three, it's a different type of sale. And I'm going to kind of leave you with this. We're in a world of information overload. When I started in sales, we had to go somewhere to get information, right? You'd have to go to a seminar. You'd have to read a newspaper. Today, information comes to us. We're bombarded with it. We're overloaded with it. There's all of these different channels. Gartner tells us there's 3 types of selling behaviors today when dealing with enterprise or B2C, and only one of them today is effective. The first type of seller is the giver of information. That's not that useful right now because they already have the information. They've been online, they've learned. And so if all we're doing is giving people a white paper or giving people information, they've already got it. The second type of seller, also not effective, is the person that is the teller of information. And the teller says, well, if I were you, I'd buy our product because it's great. And that's what I would do, sort of like your friend you were talking about, Mr. Competent. And that's not very effective right now because in addition to information being at an all-time high, trust is at an all-time low. Yeah, sure. So they don't even trust that. It's the third seller that wins today in enterprise and B2C. And that is the sense maker, the person that can make sense of all of the information that the customer already has and who can help them decide what they should even be thinking about. Because when you're selling to an enterprise and let's say they want a new piece of software or it's a service, they don't even know what to ask. So you need to be a trusted advisor and walk them through all of the things they need to think about. And you need to help them to understand how to get in front of those 11 decision makers. And so it takes more homework, it takes more tenacity, but the rewards today are huge if you do your homework, like I said, and really make sense of all the information that they already have.
Amazing, amazing. I'm going to ask you one final question and then let you go and enjoy your afternoon. I met you through LinkedIn, and from a B2B perspective, which coincides with your last answer there, for me, that's been very, very powerful. How important is it this day and age to be everywhere, but specifically on LinkedIn from a B2B perspective? Is it serving you well?
I mean, we get 80% of our new revenue comes from LinkedIn.
Yeah, wow.
Because in our minds, now it's different for different people in different industries. To me, by giving first and not asking for anything in return, we put out 3 videos a week. If they resonate with people, they come to us.
Yes. And
so I feel like not everybody resonates with my style. Some people want that harder style. They want that aggressive, whatever. And so it attracts people to us. So it's very important to us. I would say to the sellers out there, we've gone from sort of single channel marketing, picking up the phone, sending an email, to what I would call omni-channel marketing. And you need to be where your customers are. So I don't know where your customers are. If you're selling clothing, they might be on Instagram, right? But if you're selling B2B, you better be on LinkedIn because that's where those clients are. And you better learn how to use LinkedIn effectively.
Amazing. Amazing. Shari, thank you so much for your time. I do really appreciate it. I know there's lots of nuggets of gold there. Guys, this will be saved on our page. For those of you that are in our SWISH Academy, you'll be able to watch this back tomorrow as well. Shari, where can everybody find you? How can we get further information about your training, and how can these guys look into some more of your material?
So it's Shari, just so you know how to spell my name, Shari at sharilevitin.com. So you can email me directly. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Like I said, we've got lots of free content. Visit our website and Facebook.
Amazing. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the snow.
Yeah.
And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you so much.
Ryan.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.